The Galaxy Knows, Run When Humans Fall Silent Part 1. The council chamber stretched wide like an open sky, its walls made of glass that showed the stars beyond. Stood at the speaker's podium, his hands moving as he talked. He had been talking for 2 hours now, and he showed no signs of stopping. "And that reminds me of a story from old Earth," said, his voice warm and friendly. "There was once a farmer who had 2 sons." Around the circular chamber, representatives from 40 different species listened. Some paid attention, others did not. The ambassador, a tall creature with green scales and yellow eyes, was cleaning his claws. He had heard enough human stories to last a lifetime. Ambassador Haywan sat in the human section, smiling at everyone who looked her way. She always smiled. Next to her was preparing her own speech, one that would probably be even longer than this. The humans were always like this, always talking, always sharing, always trying to make friends. "The point is," continued, "we must consider the historical context of territorial expansion. In Earth's past, we learned hard lessons about taking land from others. We learned that short-term gains lead to long-term suffering. We learned that." "Yes, yes," the ambassador interrupted, standing up. His name was, and he was not interested in human stories. "We have heard your concerns, ambassador. We have heard them for 2 hours. The council must vote." High Arbiter, an ancient being who looked like a walking tree made of silver metal, raised one hand. "The human ambassador has the floor. He may speak until he is finished." Sat down again, his tail swishing with irritation. Smiled and continued. "Thank you, High Arbiter. As I was saying, history teaches us valuable lessons. When the Mongols expanded across Asia, when the Romans built their empire, when the colonial powers divided Africa. Your Earth history is not our concern," called out. "The Outer Rim is empty space. A few human colonies do not make it human territory." 3 colonies, Haywan said, still smiling. New Station and Terra Nova. Population 42 million humans, not empty. 42 million out of a galaxy of trillions, replied. "The Empire needs that space. Our population grows. We need new worlds." "There are uninhabited systems available," said. She stood up, tablet in hand. "I have prepared a list of 17 suitable systems that have no current inhabitants. These systems offer." "We want the Outer Rim," said flatly. "It has the resources we need. It is strategically important to us. Your colonies are in our way." The chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. Other ambassadors looked at each other. They were a powerful species. Their military was strong. No one wanted to anger them over a few human colonies. Took a deep breath. "Then let me tell you another story. This one is about a species called—" "Enough stories," shouted. "Enough jokes, enough of your endless human talking. We call for a vote, right now." High Arbiter looked tired. He had been leading the council for 300 years. He had seen many conflicts. "Very well. The matter before us is clear. The Empire requests permission to expand into the Outer Rim, including territory currently occupied by human colonies. Those in favor." 32 hands, claws, and tentacles rose into the air. Those opposed. 7 members voted against it. The humans, of course, and a few of their close friends. "The motion passes," announced. "The Empire may proceed with expansion into the Outer Rim. Human colonies have 6 months to evacuate." Stood very still at the podium. He had been in the middle of a sentence when the vote was called. His mouth was still open, ready to speak the next word, but no sound came out. Haywan's smile slowly faded from her face. It was strange to see her without it. She looked like a completely different person. Put down her tablet. She had 17 pages of economic analysis ready to present. She would not present them now. The 3 human representatives looked at each other, then stepped away from the podium. He walked to his seat and gathered his papers. Haywan and did the same. They moved slowly, carefully, like people at a funeral. Ambassador said, "Do you wish to make a final statement?" Looked at the High Arbiter. For a moment it seemed like he might speak. The entire chamber waited, always had something to say, always a story, always a joke, always a long explanation. But said nothing. He simply bowed once deeply in the formal human way. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Hay-One and followed him. All three humans walked in complete silence. Their footsteps echoed in the huge chamber. Everyone watched them go. "Well," said laughing, "that was easier than I thought. I expected more arguments, more stories, more of their endless talking." A few other ambassadors laughed with him, but not many. Something felt wrong. Humans were never quiet, never. As the doors closed behind the human delegation, an old elder leaned toward High Arbiter. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They remembered things others forgot. "You should have let them keep talking," the elder whispered. "What do you mean?" asked. "I have studied the human history files, the restricted ones, the ones they don't share in their stories and jokes." The elder's ancient eyes looked worried. "Humans are dangerous when they talk. They negotiate, they compromise, they find peaceful solutions. But when humans stop talking," the elder trailed off. "What happens when they stop talking?" "I don't know," the elder admitted. "The files show many human wars, but there is a pattern. Before every major conflict, before every terrible battle, there is a period of silence. The humans stop talking, and then—" the elder shook his head. "Perhaps I am wrong. Perhaps they are simply disappointed." But felt a chill run through his metal body. He watched the door where the humans had exited. For 40 years, humans had been part of the Galactic Council. For 40 years, they had talked constantly. They told stories, made jokes, gave long speeches. Everyone knew humans never stopped talking. Until today. "Open the Human History Archive," ordered his assistant. "All of it, including the restricted military files." "Sir, the humans marked those files as disturbing content. They recommended we don't." "Open them," repeated. "I need to understand what we just did." But it was too late. In another part of the station, Hay-One and entered their ship. They did not speak to each other. They did not need to. They all knew what came next. Sat in the captain's chair and opened a secure channel to Earth. When the line connected, he said only 7 words. "The talking is over. Begin Phase 1." Then he ended the transmission and sat in silence, staring at the stars. The galaxy knows. Run When Humans Fall Silent Part 2. 3 weeks passed, and the galaxy began to notice something strange. Young Ho was a merchant captain. He had been flying trade routes for 15 years, carrying goods from one world to another. He was known throughout the shipping lanes as the friendly human who always had a joke ready. His ship, the Steady Hand, was small but reliable. His crew loved working for him because he made the long trips fun with his constant stories. But today, Young Ho sat quietly in his captain's chair as the Steady Hand approached the border of the outer rim. His crew worked in silence behind him. They had not joked or laughed in 3 weeks. "Captain," his first officer said quietly, "patrol ship ahead. They're hailing us." Young Ho nodded, opened the channel. The officer appeared on the screen. He had the typical superior smile that always wore when talking to humans. "Human vessel Steady Hand, this is border control. State your business." Young Ho looked at the officer for a long moment. Then he said only 3 words, "You should leave." The officer waited for more. Humans always said more. They explained things, asked questions, made small talk, but Young Ho just stared at the screen, saying nothing else. "Is that all?" the officer asked, confused. Young Ho reached forward and ended the transmission without another word. The officer sat in his patrol ship, staring at the blank screen. He had dealt with hundreds of human ships. They always talked, always. Something was very wrong. Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Human merchant ships were still flying, but their crews had stopped communicating. Human scientists at research stations were abandoning their posts. Human tourists were returning home. And strangest of all, human social media had gone completely dark. The galaxy had gotten used to human social media. It was everywhere. Humans posted pictures of their food, their families, their pets, their opinions on everything. Other species found it annoying but also fascinating. Humans shared every thought they had. Until 3 weeks ago. Now, all human social networks showed the same message: temporarily unavailable. Noah was a human scientist who worked at an observation station near space. She studied star formation and had been at the station for 5 years. She was friends with all the alien scientists there. She taught them human games and shared recipes from Earth. On the morning of the third week, Na packed her belongings. Her alien colleagues watched in confusion. "Where are you going?" asked her friend, a blob-like creature named. "Your research is not finished." Na did not look at, she just kept packing. When she was done, she walked to the communications console and recorded a message. The message was exactly 7 words long. "We recommend you stay away from space." Then she left on the next transport ship without saying goodbye. And the other scientists watched her go. They had never seen Na act like this. She was always friendly, always explaining things in detail. Now she was gone, and they did not understand why. Admiral was pleased with himself. The human colonies in the outer rim had been evacuated without any resistance. Not a single shot fired. The humans had simply packed up and left, taking their people and their possessions with them. They left the buildings intact, the power still running, even the streetlights on. "Cowards," said to his officers as they toured the empty city of Nu. They ran away without even trying to fight. The council was right to ignore their protests. His second officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, this doesn't feel right. Why would they leave everything so clean? Why not sabotage the infrastructure?" "Because they know they cannot win against us," said confidently. "They are a weak species, all talk and no action. Come, we have 2 more colonies to occupy." But as fleet moved deeper into human territory, strange things began to happen. A supply convoy disappeared between 2 planets. No distress call, no wreckage, just gone. Patrol ships stopped reporting in. Outposts would call for help, then go silent before help arrived. At first blamed equipment failure. Then he blamed pilot error. But the disappearances kept happening. On the station where worked, scientists were gathering around a computer terminal. They had found something in the human data files that Na had left behind. It was a folder labeled Human History Military Conflicts. Inside were thousands of files. Opened one at random. It was about something called World War II. Read about the industrial capacity of Earth nations, the millions of soldiers deployed, the cities destroyed. The numbers were horrifying. "This must be exaggerated," said. "Surely humans did not kill this many of their own species." Another scientist opened a different file. This one was about guerrilla warfare in a place called Vietnam. It described how a smaller force defeated a much larger one through patience, tactics, and determination. It described soldiers who lived in tunnels and forests, who struck without warning and vanished without trace. "Did no one want us to read these?" wondered aloud. The scientists kept reading, going deeper into human military history. They read about sieges that lasted years, about civilians who became soldiers, about wars that destroyed entire generations, about humans who fought with such intensity that other humans wrote poems about it centuries later. And they noticed something strange. In almost every major conflict there was a period before the fighting began, a period of silence. Negotiations would fail and humans would stop talking. Then the war would start. "Oh no," whispered, "that's why Na left." Meanwhile, High Arbiter was finally reading the restricted human files. He had been reading for 3 days straight, and what he found made him wish he had read them before the vote. Humans called themselves a peaceful species, and they were. Most of the time, they preferred negotiation to conflict. They would talk for hours, days, months to avoid war. They made friends easily. They shared their culture freely. They seemed weak because they chose to be kind. But the files showed what happened when humans decided that talking was over. The files showed what humans were capable of when they chose violence instead of peace. The files showed wars that lasted decades, weapons that could destroy entire cities, tactics that other species would consider impossible or insane. Found a human military saying, "We are peaceful people, but when we make war, we make it to last forever in memory." He looked at another quote, "Beware the fury of a patient man." And another, "We don't want to fight, but when we do not stop until we win." Tried to contact the human embassy. No answer. He tried to reach on his personal channel. No response. Every human communication channel was silent. He opened a priority line to Admiral. "You must stop your advance immediately." "What? Why?" demanded. "We have occupied all 3 colonies. The conquest is complete." "You don't understand," said urgently. "The humans are not running away. They are preparing. You must withdraw your forces now before." The transmission cut off. Tried to reconnect, but he could not reach ship. In the last seconds of the transmission, had heard something in the background, an alarm, and then screaming. Across the galaxy, on every major news network, a message appeared. It was from. His face filled the screens, but he was not smiling. He was not telling stories. He looked directly at the camera and said 8 words. "We tried to warn you. Now it begins." Then the message ended, and every human channel went silent again. The last human voices in the galaxy had spoken. Now there was only silence, and in that silence, something terrible was moving. The galaxy knows. Run when humans fall silent, Part 3. Admiral stood in what used to be the mayor's office and knew. The city was beautiful. Human architecture was different from design, softer, more colorful. The buildings had windows that showed the sunset. The streets had trees planted along them. Everything was clean and well-maintained. But everything was empty. "Sir, another patrol has missed check-in," his communications officer reported. "That's the 5th one today." "Send a search team," ordered. "We did, sir. The search team also missed check-in." His tail twitched with irritation. "How many ships have we lost?" The officer checked his screen. 37 confirmed missing. No wreckage found, no distress signals. They just disappear. "That's impossible. Ships don't just disappear." But they did. In the 6 weeks since occupying human territories, fleet had shrunk by 30%. Not from battles. There were no battles. Ships simply stopped responding. Outposts went dark. Patrols vanished. And the humans remained silent. Sunmi was an intelligence officer. Unlike most of her species, she enjoyed studying other cultures. She had spent years learning about different civilizations. When her people invaded human space, she volunteered to help understand the enemy. But the more she learned about humans, the more worried she became. In an abandoned human library on station, Sunmi found data cores that the humans had left behind. At first, she thought they were forgotten by accident, but as she read them, she realized the humans had left them on purpose. They wanted to find them. The cores contained human history, not the nice history that humans shared during diplomacy. This was different. This was their military history, their war history. Sunmi read about Earth's World War I. She learned about trenches where humans lived like animals in mud and blood. She read about battles where hundreds of thousands died in a single day. She learned a new word, attrition. It meant wearing down the enemy slowly, making them lose resources and hope until they broke. She read about World War II, about cities burned to ash, about weapons that used atoms themselves as explosives, about humans who fought even when defeat seemed certain. She read about Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, about humans fighting in jungles and mountains and deserts, about smaller forces defeating larger ones through patience and tactics. But what scared Sunmi most was a pattern she noticed. Before every major human war, there was a period of diplomacy. Humans talked and talked, trying every peaceful option. They gave speeches, they made deals, they compromised. And when talking finally failed, they became silent. That silence marked a shift. The humans had changed from diplomatic mode to war mode. And when humans made war, they did not do it halfway. Sunmi found a video file. It was dated from before the evacuation. A human child, maybe 8 years old, stood in front of a camera. Her name was Bora, according to the file label. "Hello," Bora said in the video. "My name is Bora. My teacher asked us to record messages for the people who will come here after we leave. My mom says you're called. She says you're going to take our home." Bora paused, looking sad. "I was born here and new. This is the only home I know. I don't want to leave, but Mom says we have to. She says you wouldn't listen to our ambassadors. She says you thought we were weak because we talk a lot." The child looked directly at the camera. "My mom also says you should have listened. She says when humans fall silent, it means we're done talking and started planning. She says you'll understand soon. I hope you do. I hope you leave before it's too late." Then Bora smiled, waved at the camera, and the video ended. Sunmi watched the video 3 times. Then she went to find Admiral. "Sir, we need to withdraw," Sunmi said without preamble. "We need to leave human space immediately." Looked at her with irritation. "We just conquered this territory. Why would we leave?" "Because we didn't conquer anything," Sunmi said. She placed her tablet on his desk, showing him the data she had collected. The humans left deliberately. They evacuated their civilians and their resources. They left the buildings intact because buildings don't matter to them. They left these data cores for us to find. They want us here. Want us here for what purpose? To kill us, sir, away from our supply lines. In territory they know better than we ever will. They've been planning this since the moment we took their first colony. Laughed. "I've seen no human soldiers, no human ships. If they're planning to kill us, they're doing a poor job of it. Sir, we've lost 37 ships. Technical failures. This territory has unusual stellar conditions." "There's nothing unusual about the stellar conditions." Sunmi's voice rose. "Sir, I've studied their warfare. They don't fight the way we do. They don't line up armies and charge at each other. They hide. They wait. They strike when you're not ready and disappear before you can respond." His expression hardened. "Are you suggesting that the Empire, with our superior military, cannot handle a few human guerrillas?" "I'm suggesting that we're fighting on their terms now. And in every historical case where humans fought on their own terms, they won." Stood up. "You're dismissed, Officer Sunmi. Your fear is making you see threats that don't exist." Sunmi saluted and left. But she knew she was right. The evidence was everywhere. Human ships were not gone from the galaxy. They had simply stopped being visible. Human soldiers were not gone from these worlds. They had simply stopped showing themselves. That night, an outpost on the edge of new reported strange noises, scraping sounds, movement in the abandoned buildings. The outpost commander sent a patrol to investigate. The patrol found nothing, but when they returned to the outpost, everyone inside was dead. No shots fired, no alarms triggered, just dead. And on the communications console, someone had left a message. It was text only in human writing. "We don't make speeches during war. We make widows." The message was signed by someone named me. More incidents followed. A supply depot exploded with no explanation. A command center lost power and everyone inside disappeared. Patrol ships reported being followed by vessels that didn't appear on sensors. Then the patrol ships went silent. Admiral demanded reinforcements from the. He got them. 3 more fleets arrived, doubling his forces. Surely now they could control this territory. But the disappearances continued. If anything, they got worse. The humans seemed to know exactly where they were, what routes they traveled, what schedules they kept. It was like fighting ghosts. Sunmi, working late in her office, found another message in the human data cores. This one was a recording from someone named Min, the same person who signed the message at the outpost. Min's face appeared on screen. He was a young man, maybe 30 years old. He stood in what looked like a forest. "My name is Min, I'm a botanist. I studied plants. I never wanted to be a soldier, but you took my home. You took my research station. You took the gardens I spent 10 years growing." Min's expression was calm, almost peaceful. "I told myself that violence never solves anything. I believed in the diplomatic process. I believed our ambassadors would protect us, but you didn't listen to them, so now I don't talk anymore. Now I act." He gestured to the forest behind him. "You think we abandoned these worlds. We didn't. We're still here, in the forests, in the mountains, in the tunnels under the cities. We know every tree, every rock, every shadow. You don't. And that's why you're going to lose." Min leaned closer to the camera. "Every I see, I take off the board, quietly, efficiently. No speeches, no warnings, just action. There are 10,000 humans like me on this world alone. We were teachers, farmers, artists, scientists. Now we're all soldiers, and we will never stop until you leave or until you're all dead." The recording ended. Sunmi felt cold fear in her heart. She had been right, the humans were here, they had always been here, watching, waiting, hunting. She had to convince to withdraw, but when she tried to reach his office, the communication line was dead. The entire command building had gone dark. From somewhere in the city, Sunmi heard screaming. It was cut short, replaced by silence. In that silence, Sunmi finally understood what the humans had been trying to tell the council. "Talk to us. Listen to us. Because when we stop talking, terrible things happen." But it was too late for understanding. The silence had fallen, and with it, war had come. The galaxy knows. Run When Humans Fall Silent Part 4. Commander Jinwoo floated in the darkness of space, watching the supply fleet pass below his position. His ship made no sound. It produced no heat signature. On any sensor, it simply did not exist. "All units report ready," came a quiet voice through his earpiece. Jinwoo waited. Patience was everything. The fleet consisted of 20 cargo ships carrying supplies to occupied Nu. They thought they were safe. They had 12 warships as escorts. Against any normal enemy, that would be enough. But humans were not normal enemies. "Execute," Jinwoo whispered. Around him, 50 human ships became visible all at once. They had been there the whole time, using stealth technology they had quietly developed over 40 years. Every joke told in the council chambers had been a distraction. Every long speech from had hidden their real purpose: learning, watching, preparing. While humans talked, they listened. They learned about every species' technology. They studied their tactics. They made friends and traded ideas. And quietly, secretly, they built weapons that no one knew existed. The escort ships never had a chance to return fire. Jinwoo's fleet struck like lightning, precise and devastating. Within minutes, every warship was disabled or destroyed. The cargo ships surrendered immediately. "Strip the cargo and send the crews home in escape pods," Jinwoo ordered. "Let them tell their admiral what happened here." One by one, the crews were loaded into escape pods and launched toward the nearest base. They would survive. Humans were not interested in killing helpless enemies, but they would carry a message: you are not safe anywhere. On the surface of Nu, Sangwoo crouched in a building overlooking the command center. He had been living in the walls of this building for 6 weeks. They walked past him every day without knowing. They ate, slept, and made plans while he watched from hidden spaces. Sangwoo used to be a construction worker. He helped build half the buildings in Nu. He knew every wall cavity, every air duct, every maintenance tunnel. When the evacuation order came, he didn't leave. Instead, he contacted the resistance. They gave him training, equipment, and a mission: disrupt the enemy from within. Through his scope, Sangwoo watched Admiral argue with his officers. The look tired and frustrated. They had lost more than half their forces and still hadn't seen a human soldier. Not clearly. Just shadows in the night, movement in the corners of their vision, and then death. Sangwoo's earpiece crackled. All teams ready. Execute Phase 3 on your mark. Sangwoo took a deep breath. Phase 3 was the big one. Until now, humans had been picking off isolated targets, cutting supply lines, creating fear. But Phase 3 was different. Phase 3 was a direct assault. Mark, Sangwoo whispered. Across station, across Terra Nova, human forces struck simultaneously. They emerged from tunnels, from forests, from the hidden places where they had been living like ghosts. They knew every street. They knew which buildings gave the best cover. They knew where they stored their ammunition, where they took their meals, where they slept. The forces, already demoralized and scattered, broke under the assault. They tried to fight back, but they were fighting an enemy who knew the terrain perfectly. An enemy who appeared, struck hard, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Sangwoo and his team took the command center in 12 minutes. They found Admiral trying to evacuate. Sangwoo blocked his path. "I'm taking you prisoner," Sangwoo said in clear language. "You will be treated according to the rules of war. You will not be harmed unless you resist." Stared at him. "Where did you all come from? We searched these cities." "We never left," Sangwoo said simply. "You just didn't know where to look." In orbit above the planet, Commander Jinwoo received reports from all 3 human colonies. The occupation forces were surrounded, cut off, and surrendering. The operation had taken 3 months of preparation and 3 hours of execution. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Galactic Council Station," his communications officer said. "It's High Arbiter. He's requesting permission to approach under a white flag." Jinwoo considered. "Grant permission. Send him coordinates to rendezvous with us." 2 days later, shuttle approached the human command ship. It was the first time had seen a human ship in months. The stealth technology was remarkable. Even knowing where to look, his sensors barely detected it. He was escorted to a conference room. Around the table sat the human delegation he had last seen 3 months ago, when they walked out of the council chamber in silence. Was there, no longer smiling. Haewon was there, her expression serious. Was there, with no speeches prepared. And others didn't recognize. Jinwoo in his military uniform, Sangwoo still wearing his combat gear, and a woman named who seemed to be coordinating everything. Looked at them for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry, I should have stopped the vote, I should have listened." Nodded slightly but said nothing. "The council is in emergency session," continued. "The Empire has requested help. They claim you're committing war crimes." "Are we?" asked calmly. "No," admitted. "Your forces have followed every rule of warfare. You take prisoners. You treat wounded enemies. You don't target civilians. You're fighting a cleaner war than they have ever fought." Good said, "We are not monsters, we are just effective." Looked around the table. These were the same people who used to talk for hours in the council chambers. The same people who told jokes and stories and tried to make friends with everyone. But now they sat in silence, and that silence was more frightening than any threat. "What will it take," asked carefully, "for you to speak to us again, for you to return to the council?" Everyone looked at. He had been the voice of humanity for 40 years. Now he spoke for the first time in 3 months. "Complete withdrawal from all 3 colonies," said. His voice was cold and clear. "Full reparations for damages and lost time. Formal apology from the Empire. And council reform. Humans will have veto power on any decision involving inhabited worlds. They will never agree to." "Then they will continue to die," interrupted. "We can do this for years if necessary. We are patient. We are prepared. And we are done negotiating." felt something he had never felt before: fear of humans. These were the friendliest species in the galaxy. They loved to share, to talk, to help others. But when you pushed them too far, when you ignored their words and took their homes, they became something else entirely. "I'll take your terms to the council," said quietly. "You do that," Hay1 said. Her smile was gone and realized he missed it. "And tell them something else. Tell them we gave you 40 years of friendship. We shared our culture, our technology, our stories. We tried to show you that we were allies worth having, but you saw our kindness as weakness." She leaned forward. "Now you see what we really are. Now you understand why we spent so much time talking. Because we knew that if we ever stopped talking, if we ever went to war, we would win. And we didn't want to win. We wanted to be friends. But you chose," added. "You chose to make us stop talking, so we stopped. And now you face the consequences." Nodded slowly. He stood and bowed, copying the same formal bow that had given 3 months ago. "I will deliver your message." As his shuttle departed, looked back at the human command ship. It faded from his sensors almost immediately, becoming invisible again. Somewhere out there, 50 more ships like it were hidden. Maybe 500, maybe 5,000. No one knew the full extent of human military capability because they had never shown it before. Returned to the council and presented humanity's terms. The debate lasted 3 hours. In the end, the Empire agreed to everything. They had lost 70% of their invasion force. Their military was broken. Their economy was strained. They wanted the war to stop. The humans got everything they demanded. And 6 months later, when walked back into the council chambers, he was smiling again. He told a long story about nothing in particular. He made jokes. He was the friendly ambassador everyone remembered. But now, when spoke, everyone listened, because they all knew what would happen if he ever stopped talking again. The Galaxy Knows. Run When Humans Fall Silent Part 5. 6 months after the war ended, life in the galaxy returned to normal. Almost. Young-Ho was back on his trade routes, his ship's steady hand carrying goods between worlds again. His crew laughed and joked like they used to. When they docked at stations, Young-Ho would tell stories about the places he had been and the things he had seen. Other traders were happy to see the friendly human again. But everyone treated him differently now. They were polite. They were respectful. They no longer dismissed human traders as harmless chatterboxes, because everyone had heard the stories. Everyone knew what happened when humans stopped talking. At the Galactic Council station, stood at the speaker's podium telling a story about ancient Earth. It was a long story, full of details and interesting side notes. Some ambassadors listened. Some looked bored, but none of them interrupted him anymore. Hay1 sat in the human section, smiling at everyone like she always did. But now when she smiled, other ambassadors smiled back nervously. They remembered seeing her without that smile, and they never wanted to see that again. Was preparing a lengthy economic report. It was 17 pages long and full of statistics. No one would complain about its length. The council chamber looked the same as it always had. The glass walls still showed the stars. The circular table still seated representatives from 40 different species. But something fundamental had changed. Everyone understood now that the peaceful, talkative humans were peaceful by choice, not by weakness. High Arbiter called a break after finished his story. In the hallway, he met with Sunmi. The intelligence officer had requested asylum with the human government. They had granted it. Now she worked as a cultural advisor, helping the council understand human behavior. "They're still the same people," Sunmi explained too. "They still prefer peace. They still want to make friends. But now everyone knows that preference is not the same as inability." "The Empire is still recovering," said. "Half their fleet gone, their economy damaged. And for what? 3 colonies they didn't even need." "Pride," Sunmi said simply. "We were proud. We thought strength meant military power. We didn't understand that true strength is choosing not to use your power. That afternoon, something unusual happened. A new species was being introduced to the council. They were called and they came from a distant part of the galaxy. They had just developed faster-than-light travel and wanted to join the galactic community. The ambassador was large and covered in thick armor plates. He spoke in a loud, aggressive voice. The Empire seeks territory in the Gamma sector. We are a strong people. We take what we need. We will not accept refusal. The council chamber became very quiet. This was exactly the kind of behavior that had led to the war. Everyone looked at each other nervously. Raised his hand politely. Ambassador, welcome to our community. I'd like to tell you a story, if I may. It's about a species called. I don't want your stories human, the ambassador shouted. I have heard about your species. You talk and talk and talk. All words, no action. We are not like you. We are warriors. Stopped speaking mid-sentence. His mouth closed. He sat very still. One smile faded from her face. Put down her tablet and looked at the ambassador with cold eyes. All around the council chamber, ambassadors from 40 species suddenly sat up straight. Some made small sounds of alarm. Others reached for their communication devices. The elder grabbed his arm urgently. What's wrong? The ambassador asked, confused by the reaction. Why does everyone look frightened? His voice was urgent. Ambassador, I strongly suggest you withdraw your territorial claim, right now. Why? Because the humans will get angry. Let them be angry. What can they do? The 3 human representatives stood up slowly. They gathered their materials in complete silence. They began walking toward the exit. Where are you going? The ambassador laughed. See, they run away when challenged. This proves that. Sit down, roared with a voice that shook the chamber walls. Withdraw your territorial claim immediately, or you will doom your entire species. The ambassador stopped laughing. He had never heard the calm High Arbiter raise his voice before. I don't understand. They're just leaving. They're not threatening anyone. You fool, Sunmi said from her seat. The humans have stopped talking. Around the chamber, ambassadors were standing up, speaking urgently. The elder was frantically pulling up data on a screen. The peaceful plant-based species from Sector 5 was actually crying. Everyone was talking at once, all trying to make the understand. When humans talk, they are negotiating, Sunmi explained loudly. When they tell stories, they are trying to find peaceful solutions. When they give long speeches, they are giving you time to reconsider. But when they stop talking, she paused. When they stop talking, it means diplomacy has failed. It means they have made a decision. And that decision is always the same: war. The ambassador looked at the retreating humans. They were almost to the exit doors. But they're not doing anything. They're just walking away. That's how it starts, said grimly. They walk away in silence, then they disappear, then they start planning, and then, he pulled up footage from the war, images of destroyed fleets, empty cities, soldiers surrendering in the thousands. The Empire was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, continued. They outnumbered the humans 5-1. They had better weapons. They had more ships, and the humans destroyed them in 3 months without ever raising their voice. The ambassador watched the footage, his aggression slowly fading. But humans are supposed to be peaceful. They are peaceful, said. They prefer peace more than any species I have ever met. But they are very, very good at war. So good that they spend all their time trying to avoid it, because they know once it starts, they won't stop until they win completely. The human delegation had reached the exit doors. They had not looked back once. Not a single word had been spoken. His hand was on the door panel. Stop them, the ambassador suddenly shouted. Tell them I withdraw the claim. All claims, we don't want any territory. Immediately activated his communication device. Ambassador, please wait. The Empire has withdrawn all territorial demands. The humans paused, turned around slowly. He looked at the ambassador for a long moment. Then he walked back to the speaker's podium. Everyone in the chamber held their breath. "Ambassador," said, and his voice was warm and friendly again. "Welcome to the Galactic Council. As I was saying before, I'd like to tell you a story. It's about a species that learned to value peace above all else. Would you like to hear it?" The ambassador sat down quickly. "Yes, yes, please. I would very much like to hear your story." Smiled. "Wonderful. This might take a while. I hope you don't mind long stories." "Take all the time you need," the ambassador said quickly. "Please, talk as much as you want." Haywan's smile returned, picked up her tablet again. Around the chamber, everyone relaxed. The humans were talking again. Everything would be okay. As began his story, Sunmi leaned over to the ambassador's assistant. "A word of advice," she whispered. "If you ever need something from humans, let them talk. Never, ever interrupt them. Never dismiss their stories or their speeches. Because as long as they're talking, they're being peaceful. And you want humans to be peaceful. Trust me on this." The assistant nodded, taking notes frantically. Later that day, Young-ho was having dinner at a station restaurant when he overheard two alien traders talking. "Did you hear what happened at the council today?" one said. "The thing, yes. They almost made the same mistake as the... I heard the humans actually started to leave. Can you imagine if they had left? Don't even joke about that. My entire species lives in Gamma Sector. If the humans had gone to war with we would have been caught in the middle." Young-ho smiled to himself and continued eating. He didn't interrupt. He didn't comment. He just listened to the galaxy, learning the lesson that everyone now understood. On Earth, in a military academy, was teaching a class of young human officers. They were studying the war, learning tactics and strategy. "Remember," told them, "our greatest weapon is not our ships or our technology. It's our reputation for peace. As long as the galaxy knows we prefer talking to fighting, they will fear the day we stop talking. That fear keeps more peace than any army ever could." A young student raised her hand. "But teacher, what if someone challenges us again? What if they don't fear the silence?" Looked at the memorial wall where names of those lost in the war were written in light. "Then we fall silent, and we do what must be done. But we always, always try to talk first. We give them every chance. We tell our stories. We make our speeches. We extend every olive branch, because we know what comes after the talking stops." "And what comes after?" "Victory," said simply. "Total, complete, undeniable victory. Because when humans decide to fight, we don't fight to make a point. We fight to finish it." Back at the council station was finishing his story. It had been 3 hours, but no one had complained. The ambassador had listened to every word. "And that," concluded, "is why we believe dialogue is always better than conflict. Questions?" The ambassador raised his hand. "Yes, I would like to formally apologize for my earlier behavior. It was disrespectful and wrong." Smiled. "Apology accepted, ambassador. We all make mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. Welcome to the family." As the council session ended, ambassadors filed out talking excitedly. The crisis had been avoided. Peace was maintained, and everyone had learned something important. In a quiet corner, met with the elder. "The galaxy has changed," the elder observed. "Yes," agreed. "We now know that the kindest species among us is also the most dangerous." "Is that a bad thing?" "Thought about it? No, I think it might be the best thing that ever happened to us, because now we know the price of injustice. We know what happens when we ignore the voices of peace. We know to fear the silence." Throughout the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, a new saying spread. It passed from species to species, world to world, becoming part of galactic culture. "Fear not the human who threatens. Fear not the human who shouts. Fear the human who has nothing left to say." And everywhere people understood. The galaxy had learned its lesson. When humans talk, listen. When they tell stories, pay attention. When they make long speeches, be patient. Because when humans fall silent, it's already too late. The galaxy knows now. Run when humans fall silent. But better yet, never make them fall silent in the first place.